Hi everyone, I'm Molly, one of the registered dietitians here at Weill Cornell. I cover kidney and pancreas transplant. March is National Nutrition Month, so I'm going to walk you through how to make a healthy and quick recipe that's perfect for a busy weeknight meal or healthy meal prep lunches. The recipe is called One Sheet Salmon with herb-infused green sauce from the Joy Bauer Superfood Cookbook. I chose this recipe because it only requires one pan, which means minimal dishes, and most of the cook time is passive, so you can get other things done while the dish is cooking. This recipe does contain dairy and fish, so if you don't eat those things, I'll provide other modifications to manage other dietary preferences. To make this recipe, you'll need a large mixing bowl and a sheet pan. The main ingredients are salmon, bell peppers, Brussels sprouts, olive oil, salt, and pepper. Personally, I feel that adding a starch to a meal makes it more satisfying, so I recommend serving this meal with a whole grain such as brown rice, quinoa, or farro. You could also add chopped potatoes or sweet potatoes to the sheet pan and roast those with the rest of the meal. We're going to top our dish with an herby green sauce. The recipe calls for parsley, cilantro, dill, mint, scallions, dried tarragon, shallot, apple cider vinegar, Greek yogurt, salt, and pepper. First things first, let's preheat our ovens to 400 degrees.
While your oven is preheating, chop your vegetables. The vegetables we're using today are peppers and Brussels sprouts. However, almost any vegetable would work here. Red onion or zucchini would also go great, but feel free to adjust according to whatever your preferences are or even what you might already have in the refrigerator. Bell peppers are an excellent source of vitamin C and actually contain even more than an orange. When cutting them, make sure to remove the stem, seeds, and white parts. I like to cut them into strips. Next are the Brussels sprouts, which are in a family of vegetables called cruciferous vegetables. Other vegetables in this family include cauliflower, broccoli, and cabbage. These vegetables are rich in fiber and may even protect against cancer. When cutting Brussels sprouts, I cut off the thickest part of the stalk because it can be tough to chew, and then I cut them in half. If some leaves fall off, that's okay. They'll get nice and crispy when we roast them. In your mixing bowl, combine the chopped bell peppers and Brussels sprouts. Drizzle with extra virgin olive oil and then add salt and pepper. I recommend measuring out your salt so that it doesn't turn into a high sodium meal. 1 teaspoon of salt has 2,325 milligrams of sodium, which is a little more than what's recommended for a person for the entire day. Remember that the sauce we're making will also have salt in it. Spread your vegetables evenly across the baking sheet. Trying to make sure they're spaced as evenly as possible and not overcrowding the pan is important to make sure that they roast properly. Roast at 400 degrees for 15 minutes. This is a good time to start cooking your starch if you're adding one. I'm going to use whole wheat couscous because it cooks relatively quickly. The reason I recommend choosing a whole grain is because they have more fiber than refined grains and usually more vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients too. Fiber helps keep you full. It can also help lower cholesterol levels and manage blood sugar. While the veggies are roasting and couscous is cooking, let's make our sauce. The recipe calls for several different fresh herbs, but you can honestly use whatever you have on hand. Hate cilantro? Leave it out. Have some leftover basil you want to use before it goes bad? Add that in there. I wouldn't worry if you don't have every single herb on the ingredient list. This can actually be a great way to use up any leftover fresh herbs that you might have. To make the sauce, chop your shallot into small pieces and add to a small blender or food processor. Next, add all your other ingredients into the blender. I'm using plain Greek yogurt today. If you don't eat dairy, feel free to substitute any plain plant-based yogurt. There are plenty of good ones on the market these days made from almond milk, coconut milk, and oat milk. Just make sure you get one that's unsweetened. Blend all the ingredients together until smooth. This recipe makes extra sauce, but that's okay that we'll have leftovers. It's so versatile that I know it'll be able to be used for other things. The sauce would also make a great salad dressing or a dip. When the timer goes off for the vegetables after 15 minutes, we're ready to cook the salmon. Take out the sheet pan and toss the vegetables around. Clear a space in the middle of the sheet pan, which is where we'll place our salmon. Place the salmon skin side down onto the sheet pan and then rub the top of the salmon with olive oil, salt, and pepper. Salmon is serving as our protein in this meal. Having enough protein at meals is very important to help keep us full. Salmon is also a great source of anti-inflammatory omega-3 fats. If you don't like salmon or don't eat fish, other options could include chicken, chickpeas, or tofu. The cooking times may vary a bit for each, but any of these proteins would work. This recipe is also great for meal prep. You can have one serving tonight and then bring the next serving for lunch the next day. Just make sure you store the green sauce separate and add it after you reheat your meal. Return your sheet pan to the oven and cook for another 10 or so minutes. Exactly how much time you'll need to cook will depend how thick your salmon is. To serve, divide vegetables, salmon, and couscous among plates. Drizzle with the green sauce and enjoy.